Welcome to Rigshospital in Copenhagen. We are performing a case with distal left main bifurcation stenosis. The patient on the table is a 54-year-old male who has hypertension. He was hospitalized with stable angina a couple of weeks ago. He has actually been running a marathon 3 months ago. He had had a coronary CT scan prior to the angio, which showed a distal left main stenosis. He had a left ventricular ejection fraction of 60%. He had had an angio at a referring hospital, which confirmed that there was a distal left main and prox LAD stenosis in a bifurcation with two large diagonals. And he had been on an MDT conference, and he is now scheduled for PCI of the left main. Dr. Petersen has just wired the vessels, the LAD, the circ, and I think there was one diagonal as well that was wired. As you can see on the screen here, you've got a distal left main stenosis and the proximal LAD stenosis. 4 very big vessels, LAD, the 2 diagonals, and the circumflex. And it seems like the left main might be a little undersized for these vessels, so we have to look into that. And we have a stenosis at the LAD as well. So we have started out with wiring the big side branches, the LAD, the circ, and the first diagonal. And now we're going to do some IVUS to see exactly what we have got in the bifurc and whether we should choose a 1-stent strategy or a 2-stent strategy for the left main. We haven't decided that yet. So the next step will be the IVUS, right? Yeah. Start out in the LAD. And the mid part as well. You can see the IVUS here on the screen. It's not perfect, but you can see it. And here we start out in the distal part of the LAD, where we have a very nice vessel here, 2.5, 3 million side branch coming in there at 6 o'clock. Now we see some plaque here. That's a mid LAD. We're entering the plaque and some narrowing. Here we see there's definitely some plaque. Now approximately, it might be some bridging. We'll have to look into that. Yeah, normal vessel wall, huge side branch coming. That's the second diag coming in at 12 o'clock. And here the first diag coming in. And here we see definitely quite a lot of plaque. And now we're entering the left main, and the wire from the circus coming in there, and plaque in the left main as well. And now we're in the aorta. So first we will have to see whether it was actually a plaque or some bridging in the distal part. And here, as you see, the distal vessel, it looks quite normal, a little bit plaque here, but not very much. And now we enter in the narrowed area. There was a little bit of plaque here, not that much. Here we have the narrow. Yeah, it's actually bridging. There's not much disease in that. There's a little bit of plaque here, but not that much. Now we're entering, that was one of the diagonals coming in. And here we have the plaque, actually quite a huge plaque diameter around 5.3, so 5.56, sir. That's the prox LAD. I can just measure it a little bit more distal just to see that's distal to the first diagonal. It's 5.6. Yeah, it's 5.5 here. And then we enter the plaque, and here it's the circ, the ostium of the circ, and the wire coming in. And here we have the left main. Oh, that was a little bit too little. And then we have a left main of 5.3, 5.4. So now we're going to do an IVUS run into the circ to see whether there's disease in the ostium of the circ. It didn't look that much when we passed the ostium from the LAD. It actually looked quite good. And now we're in the mid circ, starting pullback. Very fine vessel here, side branch coming in. That was the marginal. Some plaque here, not that much, but now we are almost at the ostium. Here we have it. Yeah, a huge vessel, but it didn't seem that there was much disease. It's a huge prox circumflex. We need to find out whether we can actually stent the prox circ, because if the vessel is too large for a stent, then we definitely will have to reconsider whether PCI is the best option. It's just for bailout. We are not planning to stent the circ. Here we see the ostium. It's not that diseased, so we can still perform a 1-stent strategy. This is the left main, and this is prox circ. Here we are entering the left main, but the ostium of the circ doesn't seem to have much disease. 6.3. That was identical to what I just found there. It's 4.5 or something like that. Yeah. So we could go for a stent in if we need to convert to two-stent strategy. I don't think we will have to, because we don't have that much disease in the ostium of the circ. But when we go ahead and stent, we need to make sure that we cover the dilated segment of the LAD and that we cover all the way to the ostium. This actually looks like a fine landing zone, this one, don't you think? And then all the way to the ostium here. So that's a 25 millimeter. The thing to consider here is whether we actually think that we can dilate the vessels and we can have a good stent expansion and position. We have some areas, as you can see on the screen, where we have some dilatation of the proximal circuit, and we have a very huge proximal LAD there as well. So whether we can actually cover it with the stents that can go up, we go with the largest stent, so it can go up to 6 millimeters. But if we are not sure about this, and we should probably aim for CAPIT instead. That's what my colleague is right now discussing with another colleague. We continue with the PCI and go for pre-dilatation now. So we just start with the non-compliant 3.5 balloon to see how it works within the stenosis. We would need at least a 4.5 before stenting, or we start out with a 3.5. Just to see, as you can see here, there's a huge plaque. Very nice. That's one of them coming in, and soon after you see the second one coming in. It's coming there. That's the second one, and then we come to the third. Yeah, the second branch is about 10 millimeters. That was what we saw on the CT scan as well. Yeah. So now this is a 3.5 balloon coming in, and just going to the LAD left main, not going into the side branch. As you can see on the screen, there's no indentation on the balloons compared to what we saw on the IVUS. That there's no calcium in the lesion. It's a soft plaque. You want a 4.5 balloon? No, it is a soft plaque, so you can just go with a 4. The next balloon will be a 4.0, 15 millimeters. The one on the screen now is just a 3.5. You saw it slide a bit. It stays in place. Yeah. And we have seen on the IVUS that we probably need a stent around 25 millimeters. We go for a Megatron because that one can be dilated to 6 millimeters to 4.0, which we will take up to 6 millimeters. Probably 5.5 in the left main. What you see on the screen now is just a 4.0 non-compliant balloon. This is just where we plan to pot afterwards. I slide a little bit. I think with a long stent, keep in place. And as you can see on the screen, despite multiple dilatations in the left main, pressure remains stable. And the patient, as we said earlier, the patient has a normal left ventricular function. So that's why there's no hemodynamic compromise with these dilatations. So now we have to decide the length of the stent. We know it's a 4.0 millimeters. It should be either 24 or 28 because of the length of the Megatron. But we can just look at the IVUS. We have the distal landing zone, left main here. So that means it's 24.7. So I think it should be the 28 millimeter stent. The 24. If you take the 28, then it will land just below the second diac. So if you go with a 24, you don't need to land it distal to that one. So maybe it's better to land it. Yeah, I think that as well, because the vessel is narrower there, of course. So the 4.0, 24, there's the diagonal coming in there at the top at 12 o'clock. So if you need to be above that one. Now, I don't think it will change our strategy. If you look, yeah, it looks absolutely good. I don't think you need to do an IVUS. It's a very beautiful ostial circ, actually. So you can do an IVUS in both vessels just to see what you have achieved. So let's do that. So we go with the LAD first, because that's where we dilated, right? Just to see what we achieved with the pre-dilatation balloon, just from an education perspective. And then we'll go for the circ afterwards, just to see whether there's been any plaque shift to the ostium of the circ. So here comes the IVUS into the LAD, doing a long pullback here. And here we are in the area where we had some bridging. Here we're proximal to that small plaque. Here's the second diagonal coming in. We haven't been there with the balloon. There's some plaque. Here's the first diagonal coming in. And proximal to that, we have done the pre-dilatation. You see here, haven't modified the plaque that much, but we know that it's a soft plaque. Now the circ is coming in. Now we're in the left main, and yeah, we've done the plaque modification. We know that it's a soft plaque, so we can just go ahead and stenting, but we want to see the ostium of the circ, even though it looks perfectly good on the angio. We just want to check with the IVUS, doing another measurement of the left main. If it's 5.5, yeah, I think you should go with 5.5 with the low pressure, because you have these 4 really big branches taken off here. Going into the circ. Yeah. Now entering the circ. We start the pullback. This time it's mainly the ostium that we are focusing on because we haven't dilated in this vessel, so it shouldn't have changed, but there might be some plaque shifts, which there hasn't. So it actually looks very good. You wanted a 24 stent? Yeah. We take the 24 millimeter stent, and we need an ACT before stenting. So I cannot show you, but the ostium was fine of the circ. So now we go down with the Megatron 4.0, 24 mm, 4.0 in diameter, 24 in length. I'm planned to post dilate with probably 5.5 in the left main and the pot with the 5.5 and the post dilatation of the proximal LAD or the dot as called as well, with probably a 4.5, 5.0, but you need to flare it as well. So here you see on the screen the stent is coming in, and now the difficult part is to actually position it right at the ostium of the left main. It's a bit angulated, so there will be some strut sticking out into the aorta, which is what we normally see. The left cranial is almost always the best angulation for the ostium if you stent to the ostium to make sure where the ostium is. So we just push the stent a little bit into the vessel and retract it, and while pushing on the catheter, then you can actually get very close to the ostium with the catheter to see exactly what it is. It looks good, but you need to confirm it in another view. I'm not so sure, but you have to go into another angulation to see it. You're a couple of millimeters out in the aorta, sure. Yeah, we have to push it a couple of millimeters. And based on what we actually measured with the second diagonal, it's 2 millimeters, and then you will have the dot at the left diagonal, just proximal to the left diagonal as well. The other angulation was actually a little better. The distal part is exactly where we want it. The distal part of the stent, based on you have pushed it 2 millimeters in. If you go now, you probably push the stent, yeah. But this projection was actually quite good for positioning. Yeah, it's actually quite good. This one, I still need to retract it a couple of millimeters. This is it here in this projection. So we go to the cranial. I think you need to push it 1 millimeter. You drag the stent just half a millimeter, but I think that was good. Let's just check here, because that one was actually just not much, a little. We go just half a millimeter, yeah, to retract it. Is that for the LAD or for the that's the pot? So we go with a 5.0 for the pot. Yeah, I think, but we can do that later on. We start out with a 5.0 balloon, and then we will see whether we need the 5.5. So we do the pot, remove the jailed wire if everything looks good. Then we do another IVUS run, or would you do the post dilatation of the LAD before the IVUS? So we do the pot, remove the wire, and then do the dot, and then do the IVUS. That's the first one. That's why I think that you should do the 5.0 in the LAD, and then 5.5 with a 8 or 10 atmosphere in the prox. Not to the distal part, but start out with a pod, yeah. And we need to be a distal carina here. It's almost vessels of the same size based on IVUS. Now it's a 15, and there was only a left main of, or was it 8 or 10? You said. So, but do we need to flare it a little bit? Make a small puff to see whether the circ is open. You consider rewiring it. Let's just see what the circuit looks like. We shouldn't touch it too much. We're discussing whether we should do a kissing of the circ. It looks very, very good. So I'm not in favor of a kiss if it's completely open. I'm not sure. I think I would go for the IVUS now and see whether you need to post dilate the 4.5. You see we have a jailed circumflex wire now. We're retracting it to avoid a deep intubation and avoid harming the proximal part of the stent. France was retracting the guide catheter. Now he has retracted the wire and just need to replace the guide catheter. You can do it with a balloon in the LAD, but as you already saw on the angio, there was a huge difference from the pictures that we had prior to the stenting and now the stenting, and we just need now to do the distal optimization of the stent, the so-called dot, and then we do an IVUS, and then we will, based on the IVUS, and consider whether we should actually do a kissing balloon. We use the stent boost here to place the distal marker just at the distal point of the stent. We go 16. It's circumflex that you want to rewire, or the distal part of the you want to place a wire in the circ before doing the IVUS, so you can actually see the have some landmark with the wire. Or, no, it's just as a landmark, and then you have it if you need the kissing balloon. I mean, it's just for education purposes that we have a wire that's actually going to be visible on the screen. Now we have standard, we have done the pot, and we have done the dot, and now we're going to do the iris to see whether we have a proper stent expansion and proper stent deposition. See the ostium of the circle. If everything is all right there, then well, then we're probably done. The guide is an XB 3.5. Probably should have chosen a 4.0. It has done its job, but probably would have been easier with a 4.0. Now we have the iris on the screen. This little LED coming up. Here's the second diagonal coming in. Now it's the first diagonal, and stent is right at the first diagonal. It's a well-expanded stent. Here we come into the ostium of the circle. Now we're in the left main. Looks a bit, and we have some struts out in the aorta. I think we have a problem with it's not saving. So we actually, it's not saving anymore because we have but we have to close this one first to save it, and then we have to kind of do that. No, I think we have a problem with the hard disk because it hasn't saved the 4 or 5. Last week there was a problem, but we cannot show that on the screen. Take 3 minutes from now, Frans. What we're discussing now is that this landing zone was within a plaque, but it was a plaque with less than 50% plaque burden, so it shouldn't be any problem. But I think that what I saw from the iris was that the proximal part, the pot should be done with a 5.5 balloon at least. Yeah. So we're just waiting for saving the iris ones. There's been some problem with the hard disk, so we're saving them before being able to do a couple of new iris ones. Can you do an ACT while we're waiting? We don't want to do that. No. You haven't done an angio after the pot? No, you haven't. You haven't. Now we can go with the iris if you want to do the iris. That's fine. Then we can drag it up there. The LED distal to the second diagonal, which is coming in a few seconds in there at 12 o'clock. We have some plaque here, but absolutely less than 50%. We can measure it. Still, here's the first diagonal. Here's the stent right at the first diagonal was the landing because we wanted to land at the ostium of the left main. Now we're entering that was circ coming at 9 to 12 o'clock. And we definitely need to post-dilate the stent and flare it. You've been there with a 4.5. You could go with a 5.0 there, and then a 5.5 at the left main. Now I think the landing zone is fine. So we go with the 5.5 for pot in the left main and flare it even more at the ostium. This is just at the point of the circumflex there, the issue with the short guide, but this is fine. So now we have done the pot and we are going in through the stent over the balloon into the left main. It takes quite some time for the balloon to empty, but eventually it will. Yeah, I think we should do another iris run, but let's see an angio just to make sure that the circ is open as well. And if you're just doing the cine without contrast, can you see where the catheter is located? What it's doing is to position the catheter without ruining the stent. Either think about using a guide extension and balloon to drag the guide extension in, but I don't think it's safer to guide extension and drag it over a balloon. So bring down the guide extension, then go with the balloon into the vest, position the guide extension over the balloon because you have a risk of harming the. You can do an iris at this point just to make sure that nothing has happened. Maybe a little too deep, but still, you want to do the angio first or take it in a caudal. I think at least you can have it there while you're going down with the iris. So you see it's a beautiful circumflex ostium, and it's actually a beautiful size now of the left main and the prox LED. We don't have any narrowing at the ostium of the left main. So based on the angio, it looks like a perfect result. So now we have to see on the iris whether that confirms it. Now we do the iris run. That's the LED. That's the mid portion of the LED. Again, at 1 o'clock here come the second diagonal. Very shortly after we have the first diagonal coming in. And here we have the stent landing just at the ostium. Very beautiful position stent here. The circ coming in here, and a well-positioned stent in the left main as well. It seems well-positioned and well-expanded. And here's the struts out in the left main, but they were beautifully flared. From what I just saw, we are just at the ostium of the diagonal. Left main is good, and at the ostium, at the circ, here's the circ coming in. I don't think you should do any manipulation of the ostium of the circ. with a kissing balloon, so I don't think you should rewire it. Yeah, but that's because the stent tend to go a little bit into the towards the ostium of the diagonal, as you can see here. Yeah, because you have the plaque there in the bottom. No, exactly. And based on the, can you have we seen it in a good prediction of the to see exactly, because on that one we've seen we don't see the first diagonal, we only see the second diagonal, so we actually just have to see how it looks here. I don't think you have it here. I think you should go left instead. Yeah, sorry. Maybe there's too much foreshortening, but we'll see. It's too much foreshortening on the first diagonal. Then we should probably do a RAO cranium. You have the circumflex, yeah, but it's the ostium of the first diagonal. That's the one I want to see. Yeah, because you cannot see it in the RAO. Do you have an RAO cranial to start with? And if we go even further, but it's a completely normal flow, and it has the right circular shape and the ostium as well. So I think you're done now. I think it's a beautiful result. Maybe you should end up with the prediction that you started out with before you retracted a little bit and then you redirected it. But you can go with just a diagnostic. So now we give some nitro before the final, hopefully the final shot here. And it's a beautiful result. Yeah, a caudal prediction as well. It's a beautiful left main now. So this concludes the session for today from Rigshospitalet in Copenhagen. We demonstrated a case of distal left main stenosis of 1-0 bifurcation lesion. We've extended a one stent strategy without kissing balloon. We've done some irises to show how to measure the diameter of the vessel. That ends the session from now. Thank you.